Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. We are excited to have two extra special guests with us today, the other two members of New Money Habits. We have Coach Mike Kinealy and Coach Nino Villa. Welcome, guys.
Hey, everybody.
Hi there.
We just thought, since we have kind of alluded to the idea of the collaboration that we've done and the support group that we have in our Facebook and just all of the stuff that we've talked about before, that it would just be a really good idea for you guys to see who the people are behind the curtain. How did we come to bring New Money Habits to the Financial Coaches Podcast? So, guys, I really appreciate you coming on today. And, of course, we have Cody here as well. He's going to help ask some of the questions of these amazing coaches and just kind of let you guys peek behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah. So, Mike and Nino, why don't you introduce yourself and say a little bit about why you kind of became coaches and maybe your favorite part of it as well.
So, hey, everybody. Nino Villa here, Coach Nino Villa. Let's see. I got started coaching people with their finances back in 2013. And one of the biggest reasons I did it is I felt like there's just a lack of financial literacy that schools at the high school level, at the college level, don't really teach people how to manage their money. And unfortunately for a lot of us, our parents didn't either. So I like to just dig into the numbers and help people figure out how to manage that money well.
Cool. How about you, Mike?
So I've been coaching full-time for going on 4 years now. And I realized after I started coaching that I had been coaching for a long time before that. I worked for a big company for 23 plus years and was always helping people who worked for me or with me with their personal finances or figuring out 401ks or those kind of things. And when I got to a point where I no longer wanted to be tied to a 40 to 60 hour a week full-time job and decided to leave that, I knew that I needed to do something else to find, to keep myself fulfilled and busy. And that's when I learned about coaching. So I was in a bit of a unique position to be able to start with full-time availability. And of course, I didn't start with full-time income, but I did grow the business pretty well in the first year and really find that it's probably the most rewarding work I've ever done, being able to help people change their trajectory in their lives and really get control of one of those big stressors that is their money.
Yeah. So Mike, you actually, when you started financial coaching, you started just full-time right off the rip. And like
Correct.
You said, not full-time income. So can you talk a little bit about how that looked and how that kind of felt navigating through that first year?
So there were a lot of things in my mind that were probably personal limitations and some limiting beliefs. I didn't think that clients would be willing to meet with me during normal business hours. So I was scheduling people after normal work hours and on weekends and finding myself working a lot during times when I really didn't want to be working. And I actually met with my personal financial advisor one day and we were talking about the coaching and I shared that with him and he says, I only meet with people during normal business hours and they figure out how to make the time because it's important. And that was kind of the light bulb moment for me. I'm like, I can work whenever I want, but I'm aligning that wrong with what I want to do. So started to shift existing and all new clients into something that was more normal business hours and really was able to take control of my time at that point, which really changed things for me because much like so many of the things that we do when we're coaching are filters, our marketing is a filter, our prices are filters, my availability became a filter. If somebody wasn't able or interested enough to be able to work with me when I was available, then it wasn't a big deal to me.
Yeah. I think that's really powerful because I think, especially with you being a newer coach at that time, a lot of coaches, they want to take anyone they can get, and I think that it's actually more beneficial to the coach and the client for the coach to be kind of picky,
Oh, 100%. I look back at some of my first clients and I realize now that I didn't do them any favors or myself any favors by signing them. It was not a good fit, and you're going to make those mistakes throughout your coaching career. You're going to work with people and at some point realize it probably wasn't the best fit. But when you're getting started, it's really important to understand what is your ideal client and have those boundaries so that you're not just working with anybody who wants coaching help, because if it's not a good fit, then you're probably not the right coach for them and they're not getting the right help.
Mm-hmm. And I like one of the things that you said, Mike, at the beginning about how you kind of answered the question for them. Like the whole idea of, is this time going to work for them? And you didn't even give them a chance to say yes or no. You just assumed the no for them. And I think so many times as coaches, we do that, whether it's about their scheduling, about the pricing, about, what their goals are going to be. And we take the initiative, which is not a good initiative, to say, yeah, they don't want that. That's not for them. And we just kind of decide for them. So I think that's really cool that you recognize that so early on, and then we're able to have that light bulb moment and shift.
Yep.
So Nino, did you have a similar kind of startup with your coaching career, or did you have something different where you were kind of, you're working at something else and then you had this on the side and it eventually grew into your full time?
Yeah, so quite different in that I wasn't available full time because I had a full time job, and so it kind of became my side hustle, and I had a lot of other commitments. But like Mike, my availability, I thought I had to kind of meet people on their availability, and so I probably coached almost exclusively at night on the weekends. Not so much on the weekends. I kind of protected that time, but I did experience that same assumption, I think is the word we're looking for, right? Like, oh, they're only going to be available then, so that's when I'm available. So I had to balance a lot, and so it grew a little bit more slowly.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So how long did it take you to go full time?
Can I even consider myself full time yet? I don't know. I still manage multiple things, and so coaching people on their finances is not exclusively what I do. It's just one of the many things that I do. But I started in 2013. By 2017, this was one of my more primary sources of income. So it really kind of grew over a period of 4 years to where it was just kind of a side hustle, and maybe I was making a couple $100 a month if I was lucky, to really being able to make a couple of $1,000 every single month doing it a couple of years later. So like I said, I think it took about 4 years to kind of grow it a little bit slowly over time. Like with a lot of things, there's kind of like a hockey stick moment where you're kind of going along, and for the first couple of years, then all of a sudden you're really helping a couple of people who tell everybody and anybody who will listen about what it is that you've helped them accomplish, and all of a sudden you kind of see a demand for your services go up. So about 4 years to go from just a side hustle to it's a pretty steady source of income.
Yeah. Awesome. So and with that 4 years, I mean, for a lot of people, 4 years is a lot of time to work on something. Right. And I think that a lot of people, when they reach year 2 or even 3, they're like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. It's more work than I thought, that kind of thing. Did you ever experience that?
That's a really good question. And it just kind of makes me think about something. Like, as you said it, it's like, well, why did I keep at it for so long? Number one, it was always my passion project. It was the thing I was more passionate about than anything else. Now, it wasn't enough that I could just stop focusing on anything else. I had to have other streams of income. But I was working with probably anywhere between 12 and 20 clients pretty consistently throughout that time period. And the experience was so enriching. It like what I was able to do for them, but what they were able to to do for me, just they almost became my accountability partners as I was kind of cleaning up my own financial situation. And it was just so much fun, and there was so much passion behind it that it didn't bother me that it was like I couldn't go full time. I couldn't quit my other job completely. It was, hey, I'm still going to make time for this because by golly, I love spending this time with people. And so I was able to just kind of keep with it because although I was only having a small impact, some people might, I felt like I was having a large impact, and it just kept me very motivated. And so it didn't bother me.
And you probably were having that big impact just because of the ripple effect, right? I mean, you mentioned that people really loved it, so they would share it with everyone they know. And so you probably had an impact, that you don't even know yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good point.
Nino, you actually said something, and I'm going to open this up to both you and Mike. But you said something along the lines of, they helped me stay accountable as I was also cleaning up my own financial situation. So the question to both you and Mike is do you think that being a financial coach means that you have to have everything figured out?
Ooh, great question, Cody.
100% no. No. I did not have my entire financial situation all cleaned up and in order before I started coaching other people. What I had to have was a desire or that passion and know-how. And I had those two things. I was very passionate about financial literacy, and I had know-how. And I was going to share that with whoever was willing to listen. And come to find out, lots of people were very eager to listen. And surprisingly, although I couldn't just go full time, so I didn't have like a rush of clients, I was even surprised that I was coaching as many people as I was, because that's how many people were like, yes, not only am I willing to listen, I'm willing to like pay you for your expertise, your guidance, and whatnot. So no, you don't have to have your own situation all buttoned up before being a very effective coach.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. And to expand on that just a little bit, you don't have to know everything either when you start coaching. Now, I was in a position where we were debt-free. We'd been debt-free for a very long time, raised our kids debt-free. But one of the things that I find talking to a lot of coaches is that there's this fear around the things that we don't know, or we don't know what we don't know. And one of the things that I found very helpful is, once I met Maria and then Nino, we're able to have this collaboration and figure out the things that we don't know. And that's true through communities or whatever else it is, where somebody asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, then the best response is, I don't know, but I know somebody who does, and I'll find out, right? And that's, to me, been extremely powerful in helping people.
Well, I think it shows that you're a real person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and what's the purpose of a coach anyway? I mean, this is the Financial Coaches Podcast, so let's just unpack that just a little bit. I don't want to go off on a tangent, but what is the purpose of a coach? What is the role of a coach in a client's life? What do you guys think?
Mike, I'll let you take that first.
The first thing that came to my mind is a guide, right? Mm-hmm. We're not there to solve their problems. We're there to help and teach them things that they may not know, and help show them a way to get to where they want to go. But we're not there to solve all their problems.
Okay.
That's a lesson I had to learn, because I was the coach who was there to solve all their problems. I know you don't know, and that's okay. It's not your fault you don't know. School didn't teach you, your parents didn't. So I'm going to teach you, and I'm going to help you solve all your problems. And I had to learn the hard way that, people have to kind of show up for themselves. You can't want it more than they want it. You can't do it for them. But I still kind of hold to, it's just my style of coaching. And I think the real answer is there are many correct answers to your question, Maria. But for me, I like to be that hands-on, roll up the sleeves. We're going to figure this out together. I'm not going to give you all of the answers, but I'm going to lead you. Like Mike said, I'm going to guide you to kind of an aha moment. Hopefully you have an epiphany, you start to realize things, light bulbs go off, and then that becomes your motivation for wanting to implement a change or do something differently. But yeah, I love kind of being really hands-on, and rolling up the sleeves and getting down and dirty into the numbers, to help people kind of realize, like, oh, there are different ways I can be doing these things, smarter ways.
Yeah, very good. And so one of the things I would add to that is just the idea that, like, I'm going to bring it right back to where Mike was talking about his scheduling, right? Where his light bulb moment went off. It was because he was in it. So somebody who he was talking to, who's a financial advisor, didn't say, hey, Mike, did you know ... It was kind of like Mike had to go through the process first of realizing what it was that he really wanted by doing what he didn't really want. And then having a guide, if you will, kind of point that out to him. And then that's when that light bulb went out. And so for me, that's how I view a lot of coaching, is the idea. I tell my clients all the time, look, I don't know the answers to your life. I mean, I've known you for 15 minutes. You've known you for your whole life. And so for me to pretend like I have all the answers for what's the next best thing for you would be a little bit silly for me to say. However, I do have the skills necessary to help draw that out of you, because you are so focused on something that you're not able to see the forest through the trees. And so that's kind of how I look at coaching as well. So I think that if you have that idea, you can be a really, really great coach without having all of your stuff buttoned up, if you have the skills necessary to bring people through that process that we just talked about.
Absolutely. So this is actually, I have a question for all three of you. And the question would be, you guys are new Money Habits. So what's the story? I mean, you guys are all your own people. You guys didn't work together all the time, so how did it all come together?
How did it come together, guys?
In pieces, but eventually together. I can't do the story as much justice as Maria can, but just how Maria and I kind of cross paths is a fantastic story. That Maria, I'll give you the floor.
Okay, all right. I think I know what story you're talking about. So we actually have a mutual friend, and said mutual friend would talk to each of us about money stuff. And there was one time that I said something, and she said, you really should meet a friend of mine. I think you're like the male version of him. And I'm like, well, that sounds a little odd, but okay. And she would just say, no, it's like he does a lot of the same money stuff that you do, and he helps people. He's got a passion the way you do. And so I just kind of put that in the back of my mind. And then probably a year and a half went by. I would guess it was that long. And our city has an amazing program at the library, which is free, which allows you to go and kind of learn different business aspects. And so I thought, you know what, I'll go there, I'll network, I'll just kind of learn a little bit. And one day I showed up, and here was this guy sitting at a table, and he said his name, and then, which it rang a bell to me, but then he said what he does, and he said what church he went to, which happened to be where my friend knew him from. And when I went up and introduced myself to him, I said, hi, my name's Maria. I think you're the male version of me. And he's like, what? And so when I explained to him what I meant by that, we realized that absolutely we had that friend in common. And so we started to do a little bit of collaboration. Like, I remember that we went out to lunch one time just to kind of pick each other's brains a little bit. But we didn't really say, hey, let's work together. It wasn't for many, many months later. I had a lot of life happen with me. We had an unexpected baby born. And so I kind of put my business on hold for a little while. But once she was about 3 months old, I was just itching to get back into the business. And so I thought, you know what? I haven't been to that whole library program for a while. I'm going to go, and I'm just going to see who's there. Well, lo and behold, Mr. Kinealy was one of the individuals at the table. And I thought, oh, well, this is a new development, somebody new in the exact same area who's doing something very similar. And so, all of those internal voices that we've learned about kind of start going off like, well, he's doing the same thing you're doing. That could be competition. And I'm just like, you know what? I don't even care about that. I want to do this with somebody. I know that we can collaborate. There's no reason. There's plenty of business around, even just this local area for all of us. And so I, not knowing him, said, hey, let's get together sometime. Let's see if there's any way we can collaborate. He's like, what do you think that looks like? I don't know, but let's just see what that could look like. And so we met up, I think it was the very next day, right, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah. So we made that happen. And then after talking to Mike and hearing what a lot of his strengths were, and he had tuned into one of my podcasts and had heard some of the strengths that I have. And he said, I think we could do this. I said, I think I have somebody else in mind that would be a really great addition to this. And so even all those months later, I invited Nino for a meet and greet, and the three of us started talking, and here we are.
Wow. The magical library.
Right.
Yeah. And the time, first of all, we're very thankful for the library, but at the end of the day, that was a networking meeting. And when you're growing your practice, when you're launching your practice, whatever it is, find networking meetings where you can be out and talk to other people, because clients are created in conversation and you never know who you're going to meet and what that's going to lead to. And the other side of it, for when Maria and I met, I mean, the timing was perfect, at least for me. I don't know about Maria because she had this brand new baby that she had with her in the meeting, and she had a lot going on in her life. But I was at this point in my practice where I was trying to figure out what help I needed. I thought I needed an admin. I thought I wanted somebody to do all the back office stuff that I don't like doing. In my career, I had an admin who had 3 admins who kept me organized and did all this stuff. And I thought that's what I wanted, or I thought maybe I was going to sponsor somebody or hire somebody just to help with onboarding new clients, things like that. But when I met Maria and we sat and talked for a while, I thought, what I really need is someone who brings something else to the table. I was wrong. That's not what I needed. But that was what was attractive. And then as the three of us connected and started to grow, we really did become each other's accountability partners. We didn't immediately partner. We didn't immediately create the business. We got to know each other. We got to know each other's strengths. Maria has said for a long time, we fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Because we really do, because we all have a different approach to the same goal, right? And that's just been really, really valuable, at least to me. And it's helped me grow as a coach. And, I've said before that the three of us do more than each one of us individually could do, right? Because there's strength in numbers, there's, the power of economy of scale and all those kind of things. But it's just really been... a very positive relationship for us.
Yeah. And what I love about your structure of your partnership is that you guys, you have all of your own clients that you meet with individually, but then you also have clients that go between all of you or a couple of you. Is that correct?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like, I mean, if I was a client that got all 3 of you, I'd be like, yeah, this is sweet, And then on top of that, you also have like larger projects that you guys work on together. Like I know that you've done the masterclass, which I've personally taken, and I can't say enough about it. But if you guys want to maybe unpack that a little bit and give a few features, I think that everyone listening would love to hear more about that.
Yeah, before I jump in onto the masterclass, I just kind of wanted to reiterate a couple of things that Mike and Maria said about just like the formation of the partnership, if
Sure.
I may. And that's just that I kind of want to reiterate the idea that when networking, I never went with this is my competition. So Maria kind of touched on that, right? Like it's not about this person is my competition. It was, how could collaboration happen? And I think so many more positive things happen through collaboration. I think we're kind of taught maybe at some level that like when you're a small business owner or whatever, that like let's say you were starting up a restaurant, then like every other restaurant is your competition and you better beat them out. It was never that way. It was always what could be gained by collaboration, and I feel like we have gained exponentially what we would have if we saw each other's competition. Collaborating, coming together, and working together has just been an amazing force. And as Mike alluded to, we all bring a different element to the same goal. I will be the first to admit I am overly pragmatic, and I can't sometimes get out of just, all right, this was your income, these are your expenses, let's go. And Maria has helped me to realize, like, there's a whole behavioral side of like why people do the things that they do that cause them to be in the situations that they're in. And when you can address something like that, it works in a whole different manner. I digress. The point being, collaboration is something to be, I think something to be seeked. And I think if more financial coaches thought that way, like, hey, I'm actually going to work with others, I think that they too could see exponential growth in their skills and abilities, not just necessarily clients, but like their skills and abilities and bringing more to the clients that they do serve.
Well, and if I may just add a layer to that, what I hear you saying, is the difference between scarcity and abundance mindset. And whether or not we're taught that everyone around us is competition, if we have that mentality, it's because we're working in scarcity. And so one of the best things that's come out of the collaboration is that once you have that open, abundant mindset when it comes to collaboration, that actually spills over into other areas of your life. So you start to realize that, I can go and I can afford this thing over here because this is something that's really important to me. Or I know that there's enough clients over here, or I have enough value where I can charge more over here, right? So it starts to spill over into all of these other areas, and you didn't think that that's what your whole purpose was, but it just happens that way. So the fact that we were able to say, yes, I think collaboration over competition is very, very important. It's because of the underlying mindset that is represented, I think.
And there's that behavioral thing that I was just talking about moments ago, right? Like 100%, like it affects way more than just, that one thing that you might be focused on. But I wanted to turn back to Cody's question about the masterclass and kind of like, what is that, or what can people expect? Some of what just happened over the last 30 seconds is exactly what the masterclass is aimed to do. It's aimed to help financial coaches build and grow their practice successfully. And so it includes things that are rooted in mindset about who you are as a coach and how you operate, how you market yourself, how you price yourself, how you network with other people. Cody, it's such a shameless plug, but you just went through the class on networking and kind of doing things a little outside of the box. How about you give a quick little example of just one of the things that not only did you learn, you implemented from that networking session?
Sure. So I'm currently going through the class myself. I've been talking and working with the guys at New Money Habits for the last year and a half, and I was just like, all right, like, why not do it? So, I checked it out, and it's been probably one of the better things that I've done for my practice. And like Nino said, the last one that we had was about the networking. And I kind of came to them and I was like, I'm kind of frustrated with this because, I send real estate agents and, like financial advisors and accountants and, tax people, like all of these leads and all of these clients when they need help, because that's not what I do. But I haven't really gotten anything in return yet. And, while I'm happy to help them and provide value to my clients through that, it's kind of frustrating because, I would like to get, I'd like to get thrown a bone every now and then. Right. And, we talked about it, and basically we kind of discovered that my approach to them was what I could do for their clients, which is honorable, I think, and I think it's cool, but that's not human nature. People are like, okay, well, what's in it for me? And that's just what it comes down to, right? And so we talked about that, and one of the things that I changed was I reached back out to those real estate agents in particular. That was the first group of people I reached out to, and I said, hey, I have a value add idea that's going to add value to not only your clients, but also you as well. So I worked up like a little flyer, and it basically was just, it was a picture of me on it, and, it said, congrats on your new home. And then it had like a little paragraph that said, your real estate agent and myself have teamed up to provide you with a complimentary coaching session, as you move into your new home. Here's what this helps with, blah, blah, blah. So I hit those real estate agents up. Every single one got back to me and said that they loved the idea and that they would love to do it. So I got them flyers, and now things are in motion, and it works because it helps the clients. Of course, they're getting that free session, which is going to provide value to them, and that can then turn into a lead for you as well. But it also helps the real estate agents because that just makes them look way better. Like they're providing this several $100 value or whatever you charge for your sessions for free as just like a little added bonus at the end of signing, and or at the end of closing. And to me, if I was a home buyer and my real estate agent gave me a free financial coaching session, I'd be pretty stoked. I'd at least want to check it out, and then, hey, if I like it, then cool, I got one free and I can move forward if I chose to. So it was something that was a win. It wasn't just a win-win situation. It was a win-win-win situation, which was awesome.
Well, thank you for that shameless plug. But I thought it was a great illustration. It's a great example of what the masterclass kind of focuses on. Maria said it best when she said coaching is about drawing things out of the person being coached. And so we did that with you, Cody. We kind of drew out of you, like, what is the issue? How could you reframe it and see it through a different lens or perspective? And what action could you take? And that's just one of the 8, courses or lessons that are in that course, where we talk about things like how to attract and acquire new clients and how to build a network, how to treat your business like a business, right? Because it's really important that when you start to make income, you have a plan for, like, how does it, you can't just take all that money home and spend it, right? Mm-hmm. There's got to kind of be a plan, and how do you protect yourself and all that stuff. So, the masterclass, you can check that out at newmoneyhabits.com/masterclass.
Awesome.
Sounds easy enough.
Yep. So Mike and Nino, whoever wants to take this first, go for it. But I personally am very curious because I actually don't know this about you guys. And, I've always been curious about this question. What are some of your biggest struggles as being a financial coach? And then after that, what is one of your biggest accomplishments or biggest wins as a financial coach?
That's a big question.
It is. I've been wondering this for a long time.
And he's putting you on the spot because he knows you're going to answer.
I'll start with one of the biggest struggles I had, or sometimes still have as a coach, especially initially, was identifying my ideal client and really understanding that once I understood that who I wanted to work with and what that looked like, that it wasn't limiting. It was actually allowing me to create content and identify people who I enjoy working with and who enjoy working with me. So I think when I started as a coach, I believed I could help anybody that wanted help. And while I still think I could help anybody that wants help, as I said before, some of my early clients, I did not do them any favors by agreeing to work with them. So when I run into things like that now, fortunately I have a network of other coaches, even if it's beyond Maria or Nino, that I can refer clients to or prospects to where I think they might be a better fit. So for me, that was a big struggle for the first probably year or more, really understanding that I could and should get very, very, very specific, and I continue to get more and more specific about who I want to work with and what that looks like.
Mm. So how does one go about finding their ideal client?
So I'm sitting here looking at Maria as if she can see me because I know that's an area of her expertise.
And I was thinking that was in the masterclass.
I will say this. One of the things that started to occur to me is that I really enjoy working with people who have high income and little to no debt and are really ready to take the next step in their lives. Not working with them as a financial advisor, but working with them on where do we go next? What do we do with the debt that we have, if any, and what do we do with the money that we have, the income that we have? and how do we grow that, and how do we enjoy that? And, because a lot of that is where I am in my life, right? I'm essentially retired from the corporate world. I have saved money all of my life, and I'm in a position where I can enjoy more of that. It's taken me, with Maria's help even, to understand that I can and should be doing that. And I much prefer working with people like that. I still take the step back, whether they make $30,000 or $1 million a year. We kind of start with a budget, so we have a plan for the money. But once we have that, I enjoy working with people who are ready to go to that next step and do those bigger things with their lives.
And do you remember, Mike, I mean, you brought up that I helped you with that, and I appreciate you saying that, but I was curious, do you remember the process that I walked you through in order to have that happen?
No, I just remember you kept telling me I was being cheap.
Ah.
No,
okay,
I'm
so
kidding.
For all you listeners out there, I hope he's kidding.
I am. No, even before we partnered, Maria and I got to have a lot of conversations about a lot of different things, and it was really just that. The three of us have all coached each other over the course of our relationship before and since the partnership, and I think it was just a lot of different things where I might not have even realized that Maria was coaching me because it is just that natural to her. But when we talk about different things I wanted to do or was reluctant to do because of price or things like that, where she's really helped me rethink my relationship with my money.
Yeah, and I think one of the main things is to find out like what lights you up. Like if we talked about how, I mean, Cody, I think, brought up that each of us has our own client roster, and then New Money Habits has one as well. And part of the reason for that is because each of us serves a different clientele, and New Money Habits serves a different clientele. So what we do, it's not just like you get 3 for 1 type of deal. It's like, is this client going to be a really good fit in business A, business B, business C, so on and so forth. And so it's really more about putting them with the person who is really good for them. How do we figure that out? We figure out, like, when we're sitting across the client, whether it's a computer or the table or just on the phone with a client, start making note, you guys, those of you who are listening, start making note of when you're just like, I could go for the rest of the day without eating anything, without sleep, and I would still be lit up, versus the ones where you're like, oh my gosh, I have to talk to so-and-so today. And it's okay to admit that you have those moments of, oh my gosh, I have to talk to so-and-so today. You don't have to let them go right away. You don't have to fire them as a client. You can kind of work through that, but do at least note that in the back of your mind so that you're not taking on more and more of those so-and-sos in the future. You'll start to kind of narrow it down and hone in on who that is.
That's a really good point. I mean, I find even when working with prospects that I know it's a good fit for me if at the end of the call, first of all, it went long. And secondly, I have more energy after that call and consultation than I did when I started.
Yes.
Because I really enjoyed working with that person or talking to that person, getting to know them.
Yes. And it's not that whole idea that everything has to be wonderful all the time, but Mike brought up energy. And I think that that's really important. If you realize that you, like he said, have more energy by the time it's done than you did when it started, that's a really good sign. And it doesn't mean that you can't be like, oh my gosh, that took a lot out of me. I know when I coach people, I mean, I get into some pretty intense stuff. And there are times when I'm so intent on listening to somebody that it actually takes a lot of energy to do that. So by the end of the day, like, I might be like, oh my gosh, I could actually go to sleep at 9:00 at night. Like that's how many people I talked to today. But that's not the type of energy I'm talking about. Like I might go to sleep at 9:30, but I'm excited. I'm like that. I really felt like that was not just beneficial for them, but it was beneficial for me, and we could feed off of that energy. And I think, Mike, that's the kind of energy you're referencing.
100%.
Yeah.
Nino, you're up. Hope you had some time to think about this one.
I did, and actually, Mike kind of jogged a couple of thoughts for me, and that is, when it comes to my ideal client, one of the biggest challenges I had was firing clients who still wanted to work with me. It was, I want to help people, but in my style of coaching, I can gauge discipline very, very quickly. And so I have this story about a particular client that I love to tell because she was probably by far the worst off when we first got together. She was behind on her bills. She's defaulting on credit lines. She barely makes maybe $25,000 a year. But the young woman had so much discipline that her $25,000 a year income, she felt like she got a huge raise once she started kind of organizing and getting caught up and whatnot. And she made huge strides, and it was so exciting to see. Then on the other hand, I have couples who make $150,000 to $200,000 annually together. So there's no income issue, but they lack any discipline. And so they're late on bills, and they're about to like lose their house because their priorities are out of whack. And you're working with them, and they say, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then you check in, and they took no action. And not only did they not take the action to correct it, they made matters worse by doing other things that just compounded the problem. And it's like, oh my goodness. But because they wanted to continue to work with me, I kept showing up for them. And that was just really frustrating. So one of my biggest challenges was fire clients when you're done working with them. Like, it goes back to what I said earlier about you cannot want it more than they want it, and you can't do it for them. So I showed up, I did all the things I would do for any client and then some. And they still weren't, they weren't taking the process seriously, or whatever the case was, it just wasn't working out. And so it became those dreaded, like, I got to talk to so-and-so today. Yikes. So that was my biggest challenge. My biggest accomplishment or win, that's a little harder because I think it's a collection of a bunch of little wins, or little wins for me, huge wins for my clients. When I look back and I think about the dozens and dozens, approaching 100 or more clients that I've helped hit the get out of debt milestone, and even before that, the first milestone is I don't stress out about money anymore. I might have 800,000 things going on and my world is crazy, but I don't stress about my money. When I get people to that milestone, like, that's a huge, like, wow, I love that. Like, they're not worried about it anymore. Even if they still have debt and all these things, they have control of their finances, and it's the one area that they're like, I don't have to stress about. That's awesome. But that second milestone of they actually got to pay the debt off, and now they have that financial freedom of, I can do what I want with my income. So whether I'm going to pay off the house early, or I'm going to invest more for retirement, or whatever the case may be, what a milestone and what a celebration to get to that moment with them. And so, although they're not my accomplishments, my biggest accomplishment is helping my clients meet these milestones.
I love that. And I think that's a really good testimony as to what kind of coach you are too.
Thank you.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. So kind of building off of a conversation we had earlier, now that you guys have been in the game for, a handful of years, what do you guys think would be one of your favorite or most effective ways of generating new leads and signing new clients?
I'll go first on this one, because I love the idea of providing value before asking for anything, right? And so whether it's putting out YouTube videos showing people how to think about managing their money differently, or it's doing, podcasts, just putting out content of any sort that just like helps people. I loved kind of putting that out there and then letting that lead to a moment of reciprocity, right? Where they're like, hey, I've gotten so much value out of this guy that, I want to take it to the next level. And I in some of my marketing, I promise better results faster, right? Because for me, that's the idea of hiring anybody to help you do anything, right? I liken it to physical therapy, or not physical therapy, but like physical training. we all know that if we have a specific diet and exercise regimen, we're probably going to get the health results that we want. So why does anybody ever hire like a nutritionist or a trainer? And it's because they want to get those results faster. So I love to just kind of put content out there on YouTube, through social media, wherever I can kind of get eyeballs and ears, and then let that lead to a natural progression of, I want to work with this guy.
Yeah, you're getting them to know, like, and trust you before paying you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Exactly right.
Gary Vaynerchuk is a huge proponent of that as well. He has a book. I think it's called Jab. Is it Jab, Punch? Right.
Right hook.
Jab, jab, jab.
Right hook.
Yep.
That's what it is. Yeah. Yeah, and it's basically exactly with what you just said. Providing value, getting that trust is so essential, especially with our industry. I think that I would argue to say that the financial industry is probably the most like cynic industry out there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. To that end, I mean, personal finances are wildly personal. Mm-hmm. Who wants to open up about that? Who wants to start to talk to a perfect stranger about that? So one of the first things I did is I put my monthly budget out on the internet for people to consume for real, like my real numbers. And so to have that type of vulnerability and kind of show like this doesn't have to be as taboo as we've all made it out to be. Just to build up, some of that trust and break down some of those barriers.
Yeah.
And I think part of the reason it's so personal is because money is just a reflection of our souls, right? So the way that we handle it, the way we relate to it, it oftentimes is going to be parallel to how we relate to our spouse or how we relate to our children. And so the more that people start to see that and realize that, the less they're wanting to just put it all out on the table if there's something that they're ashamed of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think Nino did a really nice job. I mean, I take a slightly different approach, especially before COVID. I was able to still do some of it during COVID. I love to talk to people. Anytime I'm out, anywhere I am, I'm going to talk to people. And while it's true that personal finance is personal, I somehow have a way to get people to open up, probably because I'm a stranger, right? And they don't know me, so they're not giving me any specific personal details. Drive my wife nuts. We'll be out to dinner. I'll start talking to the people next to me, and the conversation inevitably leads to me asking, how old are you? How many kids do you have? What do you make? Right? How much do you make? These kind of questions. And they answer them. I used to be shocked. I'm not shocked anymore. People are just going to answer them because it's kind of safe because they don't really know me. But that leads me to be able to have a different conversation and talk about what I do. People love to talk about themselves, right? So even if they're talking about something that is a little bit, uncomfortable, money, and they're probably not telling me the whole truth anyway, which is fine, but it allows us to develop a little bit of a relationship, and then I can connect and I can start to cultivate that relationship, and then decide if I even want to talk to them about coming into a coaching relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's some really great points. And Mike, I know that one of your favorite things to do, rather than just putting content out there for them to consume, is for you to draw them into a phone conversation right away, right? So, So it's actually a little bit of the opposite, and I just think that's really neat.
Yeah, I do. I just love talking to people and getting to know new people, and it works. I mean, and I don't go into any call with somebody new thinking I'm going to create a client, right? I know that if they have something they need help with, I'm going to help them. And I'm going to do that for free in the first call or maybe the first few times that we talk. And then we'll talk about what, a coaching relationship would look like.
And so if I may, I want to point something out to our listeners. So I shared my approach. Mike just shared his. They're two very different approaches, but they're both unique and authentic to who we are. Yep. So we're not trying to be somebody else. I was somebody who, I've done corporate training for a living. So being in front of an audience didn't bother me. So putting videos out on the internet didn't bother me. To ask somebody to have a conversation out of the blue is not something I'm comfortable with. As much as I have extrovert tendencies, at the beginning, I'm very much an introvert. I'm going to kind of let everybody else figure it out, and then I'll join the conversation or whatever. And so just asking people to have a conversation is not something that would come natural to me. And it's not something that I've tried because it's not who I am. So for our listeners, I'd say pick a strategy and an approach that is authentically you and run with it, whatever that is.
And I'll just add an extra layer in there. I'm the only mom in this group, I think. We're all parents, for the record. But I am the only mom. And I can tell you that it sometimes is very difficult to squeeze in all of the things that need to be done with the circumstantial schedules that are going on. So to add on to what Nino said about making sure it's authentically you, also make sure that you are, I'm noticing that I think we lost Cody here. I'll finish this statement and we'll try to get him back. Also make sure that you are fitting it into the circumstances that you have. So I actually have both tendencies that were just described. I love putting content out there so people can kind of consume it, see whether or not they are a good fit. And I also would be fine just striking up conversations. But I can tell you this, I don't have enough time in my schedule to just randomly put conversations on my calendar. And so I use the time that I'm already out and about to do the natural conversations. And then when it comes to the other stuff, I can hide in a closet and record a podcast, or I can, write a blog post or whatever with the kids running around because I don't have to be on with somebody else. And so that's just something else to keep in mind, because I know that we have a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds who are listening to this today. So
yeah,
what?
Yeah. Well, actually, I think this is a really great last question to kind of leave everyone with. And, it's something that I'm actually curious to hear about too. So, what's like one, if you could say one thing to the new coach, whether they're thinking about getting into coaching, whether they're just starting just starting their practice, what's one thing that you could say to them? And then as well, what's one thing that you could say to a coach that maybe is more established, but they're just looking to grow their business?
I think I would have the same advice for either, and it really ties back to something we said earlier. Don't do it alone, or you don't have to do it alone. I think too many coaches, whether they're thinking about becoming a coach, or even if they have an established practice that they're looking to grow, think that I have to do it all on my own. And I know a lot of coaches, again, whether they're established or they have a dream of becoming a coach, have shared with me that they didn't necessarily sign up to be, a marketer or a web designer or this or that, and all the other things that kind of go along with being able to market yourself. And so I would just remind them that they don't have to do it alone. And so whether that just means getting out into like a networking opportunity like Mike, Maria, and I did here locally, or you do it virtually. That's how we've come to know Cody and others is, throughout the entire country, is to kind of get out there and have conversations with other people, pick people's brains on, what they're doing to make their practice successful. For me early on, finding one or two things to automate to make your life a little bit easier. And for me, it was scheduling. All of a sudden, I kind of had an influx of people who wanted to put time on the calendar, and text messages or emails back and forth, like, are you available this day? That was problematic. So I was like, I'm going to at least make this one thing easier by automating it. And so I found a very inexpensive scheduler that I could then provide somebody with just a link, and then they selected the day and the time that worked best for them. So you don't have to do it alone, and find one or two things early to automate to make your life a little bit simpler.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. I want to add to what you said with don't do it alone. So before I even became a coach, I put out into a Facebook group, and I just said, hey, like I'm thinking about doing this thing. Has anyone done this? And if so, could we talk? And the only person to reach out to me was Mr. Mike Kinealy. And Mike helped me, I was just like, what is this? And like, how does it go? And what can I expect? And Mike talked to me on the phone for probably an hour. And never once did I feel like he was rushing me off the phone or anything like that. And then he said, he wrapped up the call and said, if you need anything at any time, just let me know. And from the very beginning, Mike was just like this, essentially a mentor, and, I give a lot of credit to not only Mike, but also the three of you just for providing that value to me. And that's through not doing it alone, because I can tell you, if I did it alone, I don't know where I would be. I wouldn't be where I'm at now. That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So
I love that story. This is the first time I've heard it. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of coaches like Cody who, if they didn't have someone to help guide and mentor them, they wouldn't be coaches. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know Cody well enough to know he probably would have figured it out and he would have kept going. But one of the things that I've heard, and I've talked to hundreds and hundreds of coaches, I hear over and over again, is I feel like I'm on an island, right? And it's the whole reason that we created a community so that people can come together and share ideas and pain points and successes so that they don't feel like they're on that island, right? And it allows them to help and grow, or support and grow their business. And the one thing that I'll say to answer the question Cody asked a minute ago is, and to build on what Nino said, is be your authentic self. Because there is no better marketing than being your authentic self. You will attract the people who want to work with you and who you want to work with when you are you.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
I agree with that. And there might be things that there might be people that you're not exactly like, and that's perfect. That's actually really good. You want to find people who compliment you.
Yep.
Not tell you how pretty you are. Not that compliment. But fill in the gaps that you have.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Mike and Nino, thank you so much for hopping on the show and for answering our many questions and even the hard ones. We really appreciate it. And I think that, I got a lot of value out of this show today. And, to the listeners, if you did too, we would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to the show, give us a rating, share it, do all of that. That really helps us out, and it will help more coaches as well. And also, if you'd like to stay plugged into our own community, we do have a free Facebook group for coaches. It's called New Money Habit Coaches, completely free. All of us are in it, along with several other coaches across the country. And we do exactly what we did on this call today. We just talk about things, we help each other, and we help each other grow. So hop in there. And of course, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask us, you can submit them via email at podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. And that's pretty much it. So it's a wrap, and just tune in next week for next week's show.
Yeah, actually, I would like to add one thing, if I may. Part of the reason that we would like you to submit questions, you guys, is we'd love to have Mike and Nino back on the show, but we want it to be about you next time, not about them. So we wanted today to be a little bit about an introduction so you could learn a little, not just about how New Money Habits was formed, but also what are some of the things that each individual coach has gone through. And now you guys, you can, if you knew the four of us, we could just talk about just about anything for 2 hours. And so we'll try to keep them short for you. But we would love for you to just throw out topics at us, throw out questions, because we'd love to have these guys back so we can have just some real raw conversations. So yes, the address for that again was podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Ed, that sounds great. Thank you so much for letting me add that in, you guys. As always, thanks for listening. Tune in next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our host by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching. Music provided by Summer School.